In the early 20th century, Europe was a powder keg waiting to explode. Tensions were high between the great powers, and a sense of nationalism and militarism swept across the continent. When Archduke Franz Ferdinand met his demise in Sarajevo, the powder keg exploded, and soon the mighty German Empire found itself at war with much of Europe. World War I would be a total war, a war of attrition where entire populations were mobilized for the war effort. Soldiers fought not only on the front lines, but also on the home front. Morale was everything. On Christmas 1914, something remarkable happened. As German and British troops prepared to do battle, they laid down their weapons and celebrated Christmas together. While this event has become known as the Christmas Truce, only a small part of the story is known. While most accounts focus on the fraternization between the troops, the assassination of a German general by a British medic is almost completely unknown. Join us as we recount the Christmas Truce and the death of a Templar. The year is 1914 and Europe is at war. As Christmas approached, the German and British leaders knew that their troops would need extra rations and ammunition. On December, the German commander ordered his men to stop firing at the enemy. At first, the British did not respond, but when they realized what was happening, they laid down their arms. Soon, soldiers from both sides emerged from their trenches and began to fraternize. They sang carols, exchanged gifts, and even played football. It was a remarkable display of humanity in the midst of one of the deadliest wars in history. Amongst the British and German soldiers was Erich Albert, a German general. He noticed that there were fewer wounded soldiers during the day, so he decided to take advantage of the situation. He took 2 medics with him, 1 German and 1 British, to his camp. There they operated on one of his wounded soldiers. The German medic returned to the festivities after the operation, but the British medic stayed behind. Albert offered to trade rings with him, but when the medic raised his hands to show that he had no ring, Albert noticed to his shock the assassin burn mark on his ring finger. The medic immediately impaled Albert with his hidden blade, killing him instantly. Thus ended the life of a Templar. But who was he, and what was the significance of the Christmas Truce? To answer these questions, we must go back to the beginning of the war. When war broke out in 1914, many Europeans were surprised that the conflict was being fought not only between nation-states, but also between members of secret societies. The war was being fought on 2 fronts, the physical and metaphysical. Among the nations involved in the war were 2 of the most powerful secret societies in the world, the Assassins and the Templars. Each organization had agents and assets across Europe and the world, and each was determined to use every advantage to defeat the other. The Templars were a holy order founded in 1118 by Hugh de Payens, a French knight. Their original purpose was to protect pilgrims on their way to the Holy Land. However, as the years went by, the Templars became more militarized and were given new missions, including the capture of Jerusalem. By the 19th century, the Templars had become a powerful force in European politics and society. They had vast holdings in land and property, and were exempt from paying taxes. They were also highly skilled fighters, and were often called upon to put down rebellions and protect the king on his person. The Templars were also deeply involved in the occult, and it was said that they had access to powerful artifacts and knowledge. The Assassins, on the other hand, were founded in 1094 by Hassan al-Sabah, a Persian Shia. Their original purpose was to fight against the Sunni Muslims who controlled Jerusalem. However, as the years went by, the Assassins became more radical and began to target anyone who opposed them, regardless of their religion. They were responsible for the deaths of countless princes, kings, and even popes. The Assassins were also deeply involved in alchemy, and it was said that they had access to powerful substances that could be used for healing or for assassination. When war broke out in 1914, the Templars and Assassins were caught off guard. They had not expected the other to be involved in the conflict. However, once they realized that they were at war, they began to mobilize their forces. The Templars were confident that they would win the war. They had more soldiers, more resources, and more experience in warfare. The assassins, on the other hand, were not so confident. They knew that they were outgunned and outnumbered, so they decided to use their skills in espionage and sabotage to try to win the war. One of the most important battles of the war took place in Belgium. A group of Templars was trying to capture a key bridge when they were ambushed by a group of assassins. The Templars were defeated and their leader was killed. This was a major victory for the assassins, and it gave them the momentum they needed to start winning battles all over Europe. As the war dragged on, the Templars became more desperate. They knew that they were losing the war, but they refused to surrender. They continued to fight until the very end. And when they were finally defeated, they fled to Germany where they regrouped and prepared for a counterattack. It was during this time that Eric Albert was born. Albert was a Templar from birth, and he was trained from a young age to be a warrior. When he grew up, he joined the German army and rose quickly through the ranks. He was a brilliant strategist and tactician, and he was respected by his peers. When the war in Europe erupted, Albert was sent to the front lines to try to stop the assassin advance. He was successful in his mission, and he was able to push the assassins back, but it was a costly victory, and Albert was forced to retreat to Germany. There he met with other Templars who told him about the rumors of a great artifact hidden in the British Museum. This artifact was said to be incredibly powerful, and it was rumored that whoever possessed it would be able to control the world. Albert was skeptical at first, but he eventually decided to investigate. He knew that if the assassins got a hold of the artifact, then all would be lost. So he assembled a team of Templars and set off for London. In the heart of London, Albert and his Templars infiltrated the British Museum and began searching for the artifact. They searched high and low, but they were unable to find it. Just as they were about to give up, Albert noticed a carving on one of the walls. The carving depicted a man holding a staff with a strange symbol on top. Albert realized that this was the artifact. He reached out to touch it, but suddenly an alarm sounded and guards began to appear. Albert and his Templars were outnumbered and outgunned, and they were soon arrested. Albert was taken before the British authorities, who charged him with espionage and sabotage. He was found guilty and sentenced to death. As the noose was being placed around his neck, Albert looked up and saw the assassin's mark on the guard who was standing over him. He realized that he had been betrayed and that the assassins had set him up. He struggled against the guards, but it was no use. The noose was tightened and Albert was hanged. His body was left to dangle from the gallows as a warning to other would-be spies. Thus ended the life of a Templar, a man who had dedicated his life to the service of his order. He had fought bravely and honorably, but in the end, it was not enough. The Templars were defeated, and their order was disbanded. So what do you think? Is there anything that we missed? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching and see you next time.